Long before Harley Reid was taken at pick 1 by the West Coast Eagles in the 2023 draft, he had been receiving an incredible amount of praise from media pundits, which made him one of the most hyped draft picks in AFL history. In the past, some high-level draft picks haven't been able to deal with this kind of pressure on them at such a young age, but this doesn't look like an issue for Harley Reid so far this season, as he has picked up West Coast and put them on his back and delivered some outstanding performances. Now, it must be said that Harley Reid definitely isn't the only reason that West Coast have been able to turn around their form of the last 2 seasons and become a competitive team once again, but I do believe that his strong personality and willingness to take the game on and his ability to go toe-to-toe with AFL superstars definitely has been a big factor in the turnaround of the West Coast Eagles this season. So it's fair to say that Reid has sparked some life into this West Coast Eagles team as well as the fan base, but unfortunately you can't say the same thing for North Melbourne right now, who sit 0-8 on bottom of the ladder and haven't really looked like winning a game at all this year. North have been repeatedly criticised this year by multiple figures in the AFL media for not consistently putting in max effort and lacking any sort of system. Even Alistair Clarkson, the coach of North Melbourne himself, has admitted that North Melbourne are the worst training side in the competition and that their training sessions just simply aren't up to standard.
The standards of our group are not at the level that they need to be, and that's what we're aspiring to do. That's why we brought in new players, new coaches, to try to resurrect that. Now, we've embarked on this pathway of investing in youth, of acknowledging that that's going to come with some bumpy roads on that path. And part of it will be lifting our standards, because if we were training unbelievably well, I think that would be reflected in winning games of football on a weekend. And so it doesn't surprise me one little bit that someone would come and observe your training and say, "Oh, I don't think the standards are good enough," because that's why we're sitting in the position on the ladder that we are right now.
They say that one player doesn't make a team. However, in times like these, sometimes all it takes is one player to come along and provide the spark that lifts the standards in training and on game day and propels a team up the ladder. And it is for this reason that an interesting debate has popped up recently on whether North Melbourne should have tanked last year in order to finish last and have the opportunity to have drafted Harley Reid. Going into the last game of the 2023 season, North Melbourne were on a 20-game losing streak, bottom of the ladder, 2 wins and 20 losses. They were, however, significantly above West Coast on percentage, which meant that winning that game would send them above the Eagles and cause them to avoid the wooden spoon. This ended up being exactly what happened, as North Melbourne cruised home to a 35-point win against the Suns. It sealed the deal on where Harley Reid would be drafted to, and hence began the debate of whether North should have tanked for him.
Do you think they did the right thing winning?
Yes.
Yep. You're
100%.
strong on it. Why?
I always have been.
Yeah. So
because I've never ever seen a team, I'm mounting the argument that I've never actually seen a team benefit from actually losing a game. I think that what that'll do for those guys over the off-season and even just justify what Alistair's trying to do far outweighs getting a kid into your footy club.
So you think one win on the end of a 20-week loss is worth sabotaging the ability to completely dictate terms, get a generational talent in Harley in, and construct your own destiny in this draft period?
Well, you construct to me how Alistair construes to lose that game on the weekend.
Yeah, I think it was an absolutely...
But explain how you do it, though. Explain how, when you're good enough to beat a team, how do you orchestrate that to your players? Tell me.
So I respect your view and that you... I understand that.
But can you answer that for me first?
Yeah, I didn't think it was a difficult game to manufacture to lose in if you wanted to lose in it. So,
but explain how you do it. If you were the coach of North, what do you do?
Yeah, well, the challenge was Nick Larkey was alive for the Coleman, right? So that was the difficult part. Yeah. But putting him away a couple of weeks ago for the off-season.
But when he comes back to Clarko and he says to his teammates, "Hey, Clarko's put me away when I'm right to play."
Well, the players are always going to try and win, aren't they?
Yeah.
So the players are always going to try and win.
Exactly what you meant.
Yeah, but no one will remember that game one way or another, ever.
Yeah.
Whereas if Harley Reid picked 2 and the other players you could have put around it, set your entire footy club up. I think the spoils were way too great.
Even though they're probably going to get Harley anyway.
Harley Reid?
Yes.
How?
Because West Coast might like somebody else.
You don't think they'll take Harley Reid?
There's a big chance they don't.
That's what everyone's reporting.
So that's
West
my
Coast
only-
want a homegrown player.
That there was a clip from an episode of Footy Classified which followed North Melbourne's round 24 matchup with Gold Coast. As you could see there was two very different points of view from Craig Hutchinson and Matthew Lloyd. Hutchinson argued that winning the game was simply not worth it, considering that there was a potential generational talent on the line, and we now know that Harley Reid is a very good player. Whether he continues along this same trajectory, it is unknown at this stage. He could end up falling off a cliff. However, it looks to be that he is a very talented player and will be for a very long time. Lloyd, on the other hand, argued that a winning culture far outweighs any draft pick, and that any team that has ever sought to lose on purpose has always had it backfire on them. An example of this was when Melbourne were found to have lost games on purpose during the 2009 season in order to get a top of first round priority pick, so that they could select both Jackson Trengrove and Tom Scully in that year's draft. The club was later fined $500,000, and the reputation of the Melbourne Football Club was severely tarnished during that time. Immediately after the game, in the press conference, Alistair Clarkson jumped to the defence of his club and supported the idea that winning was the best thing to do in this situation, naturally, as any coach would do.
People say, oh, it's the number one pick. Well, stats say that number one picks are good players. We can't doubt that. But if they don't help you win premierships, and that seems to be the case over a long period of time, then maybe pick 2, pick 3, pick 5, still going to be good picks and good players. So we'll just take what we can get.
We've gone over both points of view now, but we are yet to address the elephant in the room. Because with all this talk from the media and debate about whether they should or should not have tanked, it seems to be forgotten that tanking is illegal. It is not allowed in the AFL. Most sporting leagues don't allow it, and for good reason, because it puts the integrity of the competition into jeopardy if teams are going out there intentionally losing, especially so if it's in an effort to exploit the draft system. So regardless of whether you think that Harley Reid would instantly turn North Melbourne into premiership contenders, or whether he would instantly turn around their club culture permanently, there is absolutely no way you can justify North Melbourne tanking for him. And I think it's very concerning that some people in the media are blatantly supporting match fixing, because that's exactly what that would have been if they had have intentionally lost that game. One argument that I do think can be justified, however, is asking the question of whether North Melbourne should have pushed harder to trade up for pick 1. North Melbourne did have a pretty strong draft hand last year, going into the draft with picks 2 and 3, pick 3 being the result of the Ben Mackay compensation, as well as picks 17 and 18, although all of these picks ended up being moved down slightly as a result of academy bidding. Now, North Melbourne did actually table an offer to the West Coast Eagles for pick 1 last year. The details of that offer you can see on screen now. The Eagles obviously decided to stay put and stick with pick 1. Multiple other clubs also made offers. However, Harley Reid was just so highly rated that they decided that they would stick with pick 1 and reject all other offers. Now, I believe that North Melbourne's offer here was probably a bit unders, and the West Coast Eagles would clearly agree with me. If they had have offered picks 2 and 3, as well as those other picks, then maybe there was a deal on there, although at that point you are giving up an awful lot just for pick 1. And also pick 23, I'm not really sure why they asked for pick 23 as well. That seems a little bit strange to me, but the main prize here was pick 1, obviously. So we've got to this point in the video and we've talked about nothing but Harley Reid, perhaps rightfully so. But we're yet to talk about the player North drafted instead of him. North had pick 2 and 3 in the previous draft, and with pick 2 they took Colby McKercher. However, considering that he was the first of those 2 picks, he was always going to get selected by North Melbourne. Pick 3 was Zane Dersma, and this is the player that they drafted instead of Harley Reid. He definitely hasn't set the world on fire. He's played as a small forward, so it's a really tough role in that North Melbourne side right now. Only the 5 goals for the season. He's looked alright, he looks like he has a future at the level, but he has far from met those blistering heights that Harley Reid has so far. He does have potential to move into the midfield later in his career, But right now, I think that if they did have the choice between the two, they definitely would be picking Harley Reid. So at the end of all this, what was the right decision for North to make? Did they make the right decision in keeping their 4 first-round draft picks in favour of Harley Reid? Well, in my opinion, yes they did. Despite what Harley Reid has been able to do at West Coast so far, I don't believe that he would have the same effect at North Melbourne. I think the main reason why Harley Reid has thrived at AFL level so far is because the Eagles culture has really turned around. A few of their senior players have got back to some really good form, like Elliot Yeo and Jeremy McGovern. I think that they've just been all feeding off one another, and that has led Harley Reid to become a really good player in his first year. I don't believe that there's any of that at North Melbourne yet. North Melbourne's senior players really haven't been up to AFL standards so far this year, to put it bluntly. I think that a lot of their younger players have had to do the bulk of the work, and that just simply isn't possible. You have to have some of your senior players standing up, and that hasn't happened so far for North this year. And I don't think that Reid would be able to thrive the same way he is at West Coast right now if he was in the blue and white. That being said, I don't think that they completely nailed their selections last year, and take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt because I am no draft expert by any means. However, I think they missed out on a massive opportunity to draft Daniel Curtin. He's a Western Australian key defender, and I think that he is exactly what they need. Their key defensive stocks right now are just absolutely terrible. Their only decent key defender is Griffin Logue, and he's currently out with an ACL. Past that, they've got Aiden Core, Toby Pink, Biggie Nguyen, Charlie Comben. All 4 of those players, they've been rotating in and out of the side, and nothing seems to really work as a good combo. I think that Daniel Curtin, while he hasn't set the world on fire this year for the Crows so far, he's only played the 1 game, and that was the showdown. I think that what they need desperately is an up-and-coming young key defender to, in a few years' time, take the reins as the number 1 key defender in that side. But instead they opted to draft yet another small midfielder forward type player in Zane Dersma and also Colby McKercher. They already have an abundance of those on their list. George Wardlaw, LDU, Harry Sheasel, just to name a few, Colby McKercher and Zane Dersma now as well. They have an abundance of midfielders on their list. They have just absolutely stacked up that part of the ground with young talent, and they've almost overdone it now. In fact, I think they've definitely overdone it. I don't think they're going to be able to keep all of those players. And now at either end of the field, they are looking very light. Their forward line is pretty much Nick Larkey or bust, and as I said, their back line, there is no back line. They've been conceding 120 points this year. They are yet to concede less than 100 points in a game. It is not a good situation to be in, and I just think that they really messed up by not drafting Daniel Curtin. There's been a few puzzling draft selections over the years for North Melbourne in recent times. Like they didn't select Logan McDonald despite only really having 1 key forward on the list at the time, and that was Nick Larkey. Ben Brown had just been traded, so it would have been a perfect opportunity to replace him with another very highly touted key forward, but instead they went for Will Phillips, who is hardly getting a game for them anymore. That's yet another young midfielder that they have on that list. So yeah, I think they really missed a massive opportunity to get in one of the most highly touted key position players of last year's draft. So yeah, big opportunity missed there. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you did all enjoy. I've been making a couple more longer videos like this lately, so I hope you have been enjoying the content. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe on this channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.